Welcome to episode 82 of the Sports Geek podcast. On this week's podcast, I catch up with Danny Keens from Twitter to talk about their partnership with the ICC, how Twitter users are changing Twitter all the time, and why video is huge.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals.
And now, here's your host, who is a handy point guard who must be defended for three-point shots, Sean Callanan.
Thank you very much, DJ Joel, and that's right. I'm back in a bit of basketball form, basking in the glory of hitting the game winner in our little local 3-on-3. You can simply go to my Sports Geek page. Had a little bit of fun with my video, and thank you very much to Miles Harris for actually taking. We didn't even know he was filming our game, and lucky enough to capture the game winner. So go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/Sean Callanan Speaks, and you'll see a little bit of a video mashup that I did there. My name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek. You can contact me and engage with the show via all social media platforms. I'm on every single one, and if I'm not, tell me which one I should be on. On Twitter, at Sean Callanan, at Sports Geek, on Facebook for Sports Geek. And don't forget, we've got the Sports Geek podcast community group. We've got a little group there where everyone is really just a bit of banter, talking about what they're doing, talking about around the episodes and the interviews, but also talking about different case studies and articles that people are liking. So if you want to get joined to that group, simply ping me an email or send me a tweet and I'll add you. That email, if you want to get in touch, if I can help you in any way, is sean@sportsgeekhq.com. Really looking forward to you listening and getting back to me on this interview with Danny Keens from Twitter Australia. We really get to dive deep into a couple of things that Twitter's been doing, and it has been a busy couple of weeks. And you know how much I don't like that term busy, but it has been a busy couple of weeks in preparation for SEAT London on March 17, and I can nearly announce that it's all sold out. There are a few tickets available, but you pretty much must, after listening to this sentence, go to the SEAT website, seatconsortium.com, or simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/SEAT London and check out the agenda. Looking forward to a great day on March 17 at Lord's. But now, here's my chat with Danny Keens from Twitter Australia. Here I am in Sydney in the offices of Twitter Australia. Very happy to have Danny Keens on the podcast. Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, Danny.
Thanks, Sean. Great to be here.
And first of all, can you tell us what your role is at Twitter Australia and what's in your role? What are you in charge of?
Great. Yeah. So I'm the Director of Media Partnerships currently. And so in that role, we work with media companies, sporting bodies, anyone who's a content publisher, and find ways to encourage them to publish content onto Twitter. So we look at forging partnerships with them to help get their brand out there or the sport out there, engage with fans in new and interesting ways. And one of the interesting things about what Twitter does as a business is we don't buy content and we don't make content. So, and if we think in terms of content being king, as we've all heard, how do we as a business continue to win the content game when you're not buying and making it? And that is forging partnerships with media companies. And we would consider a media company to be, the NRL or the AFL or the A-League as well in that capacity, and help them to find ways to harness the power of the platform. And I'm transitioning at the moment actually into a new role at the company. So I'll be moving to New York in a couple of weeks, and I'll be heading up North American sports partnerships. So whereas at the moment I oversee a team of people that look at different verticals, and sport would be one of those, transitioning to a role that is 100% sports specific for the American market.
Oh, terrific. Well, I'll talk to you later about getting you to San Francisco in July for SEAT, with Twitter just being down the road. So you're right in saying there's media companies, the traditional, the TV and print, but as we've seen at Sports Geek, all the sports teams and leagues are becoming media entities in their own right. One of the things a couple of weeks ago, I was lucky enough to get the selfie with Warnie at the launch for the Cricket World Cup. Cricket World CWC 15. If you're following it on Twitter, and you had a really big announcement of integrating integrating more of that experience and into the Twitter app natively with your partnership with the ICC. You want to talk us a little bit about, one, what it's doing, how it's going so far, and some of the reasoning behind it and the partnership with ICC?
Yep. So one of the things which we've found on the platform in Australia and India is the most talked about subject is cricket. So we wanted to find a way to reward our users and give them a much deeper, richer cricket experience and find ways to surface content that might traditionally be lost in a timeline. The reason for that is because with the real-time nature of Twitter, it's very hard to miss content. And so we wanted to reward partners who are publishing great content and make sure that content sort of got to more eyeballs, as one. And then secondly, we wanted our users to be able to, experience the great content and not miss it. So we rolled out specific Cricket World Cup timelines in a few markets, and so that would be the UK, India, Australia, and New Zealand, and South Africa as well. And so what users can do now is actually pivot out of their home timeline into a cricket-specific timeline, and there's three sort of experiences that you can navigate to. One is a stream of content that's just specific to the match, so it's like a match timeline.
Yep.
There's a commentators tab, which is more what we would consider high quality content, in that it's content that is curated specifically by partners that we're actually working with.
So you've got the teams involved, the guys at Cricket Australia. You've got the English cricket guys, some of the players, and some of the media partners.
Commentators.
Are all part of that.
Yep. And then the third one is a results tab, essentially, which gives you an idea of the ongoing matches, what the scores are in real time, the batsman scores, the bowler scores, and also it gives you the ability to look at previous matches as well. So you can sort of have a look at how the results have been going over the last week or two. So very exciting. And we've seen huge numbers navigate to this, which is great. So we did a very similar thing during the FIFA World Cup. And at this stage, although we're still fairly, early days of the tournament, we are on track to match the same number of people that used it during the FIFA World Cup, the Cricket World Cup, which I think is a huge win, because I think if we think about, India obviously has a huge population, but soccer would be much more of a global sport than cricket. But the idea that we're seeing the same sort of engagement rates is great. And it's great for coming from a market like Australia or India, which traditionally is still considered emerging markets for Twitter, to get the support from San Francisco to see that cricket's a valuable enough sport to commit these resources, because it wasn't easy. I'd say there probably were over 200 engineers that had to work on this for many, many months to build this unique experience out.
But the good thing is now, me being former geek, they've built that network out, and so now you're going to the US, you'll be able to flip the switch and do something similar from an NBA Finals point of view, a Super Bowl, or in all these major events, or even in the entertainment space, whether it be the Oscars and those kind of things. You've now got that infrastructure where you can provide that really rich environment in the mobile form.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, we do have an experience which. So this is kind of a version 2.0 of an experience where we have for the NFL it's an NFL experience timeline, which we actually have in the US. That timeline is very basic. It's essentially sends you to a timeline of just anybody who's used NFL related hashtags.
Yep.
It's not curated. It's just a real-time stream. If people are sending tweets that don't even make a lot of sense because they're having conversations with their other followers, they still populate, whereas this Cricket World Cup timeline is a lot more sophisticated. There's much more algorithms at work to try and surface the great content.
And because that's been, and I remember from when I went to Twitter a couple of years ago with Laura King, got a bit of a tour, and I looked in at one of the rooms, and onboarding and what new users are doing has been a thing that Twitter has been trying to solve. Like when someone gets on Twitter and they're who do they follow? What is Twitter? Because that's still a question that you guys have to answer every day for every new user.
Yep.
This provides that rich content that someone who's a cricket fan goes, oh, now I get it. And if they're looking through that timeline, they're starting to follow those accounts. And, for a cricket fan, they will have a really strong cricket feed in their timeline. Whereas, with the NRL season or the A-League season, you can start, following those hashtags. So one of the things we're always training the clubs to train the fans to follow more fans. Are you seeing, is that helping onboarding, new fans in India and Australia?
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things and I think it's no secret that as a business we have had great difficulty onboarding new users through the sign-up flow, and because it was traditionally a little bit clunky and a little bit difficult for people to understand, like, you know, what the product offered and why they should be on Twitter, and how to follow the right accounts to get the best content in the stream.
Yep.
So we've completely rebuilt what we call the new user sign-up flow to try and solve that problem. And so we've, as part of that, you could now join Twitter and actually select cricket, for example, as something you're interested in, and we will build an instant timeline for you of cricket-related content. Which and we're having huge success with it, because what we're seeing is, like, people suddenly are getting straight away the value proposition, for lack of a better word, of Twitter, because they're seeing content. And, you know, I think, like, one of the hardest things in the world that we live in now is that, like, content, if we think back to that idea that content is king, the nemesis of content would be discovery, right? Like, in that, like, there's so much content out there. On our platform, there's 1 billion tweets sent every 2 days. And
I think it was like 4 days, like 3 years ago, and it's like it's halving every 18 months or so.
Yeah. And so the hard thing is, of course, when you start to see the you know, billions of tweets being sent in such short periods of time, there's so much content. And so all of a sudden, it's like, even if you have great content, like discovering it is, like, impossible. So the timelines are very much, instant timelines are very much about, like, trying to surface all that rich content again and get it in front of the users. I mean, one of the other hard things, I think, which we constantly battle with, is because we actually have, there's a home timeline, which is that real time where people publish a tweet and you're following someone, it pops into that timeline.
Yep.
There's discovery and there's activity as well, which are two separate timelines. Getting people out of the home timeline is actually really difficult. That's where people want to live. Like, that's like that's the core, been the core use case for Twitter for so long, that live public conversational stream.
Yep.
And every time we build a timeline, like Discover or Activity, like, they don't tend to get used.
I'm a massive fan of Discover, because, like, you know, if I've been in meetings all day, I know I can go to Discover and it's bubbling up some of the stuff that's popular, or that you know, people that I follow, you know, like Shane Harmon over in New Zealand or Russell Scobetti in New York. I'll see their key tweets that they've tweeted because it's been retweeted or favorited and that kind of stuff, because it has a bit of that, you know, that algorithm sort of feel to that it is getting it right. So I'm going to that going, I am getting that right, because the home is live. Like, so, and that's where, you know, that's where sport smashes it, like whether it's, you know, the Cricket World Cup, FIFA World Cup. It's like, when the game is on, that's where you go, because you are getting the commentary from everybody. And if you've curated your feed well enough, you know, you will get a richer experience. And little tweaks of the feed of, you know, a retweet coming up in the native app, and you see that you're not following them. Oh, they're also talking about that topic. I'm following them, because I've sort of found that if, you know, until they came in, you sort of get your happy medium of, I found my people, I found my followers. And if you're not still, you know, that discovery part, if you're not finding new people, then the experience might become stale.
Yep.
One of the stats that, you know, that has been used before around, I think it was 40% of people don't tweet, you know, which Twitter have, you know, said previously. Is that starting to change? Because, like, normally when I'm talking to people, they go, I don't get it. I'm like, start up your own timeline, follow what's interesting to you. Don't follow my timeline, because that's sports and technology and business.
Yep.
But then when you're inspired to tweet. And normally that's, you know, you're watching The Voice, or you're watching, you know, a TV show that you're trying to get involved with, and they're all showing the hashtag, and that's where the conversation's happening. Or it's when, you know, you just want to yell at the TV because, you know, your sports team or Australia needs another 50 runs, and that's when it sort of starts. You're starting to see people get into that Twitter, you know, tweeting more, you know, often earlier.
Yeah, we so the 40% stat's correct. Like 40% of users never send a tweet, but they're still very active on the platform.
But they're consuming it, like, and that's the thing, and it's, you know, it's not, you know, it's not a slide at all, because you've got to realise that there's a whole bunch of people consuming your content.
That's
so they're
right.
following, you know, and I sometimes describe Twitter as the new age glossy mag. Because you're following your favourite athlete, your favourite sports team, a couple of news outlets, you know, the news anchor, and then you're following, you know, people like Shane Warne and Liz Hurley to get your gossip.
Yep.
You know,
Totally.
They're both on that, so you can, you know, it's a valid experience. But for me, the light bulb goes off when you're starting to talk with your friends.
Have a conversation. I mean, 100%. But we don't shy away from saying that we are like a consumption platform as much as we are like a conversation platform. And I think that like that's one of the hard things that we try to do as a business is because we don't entertain like consumer marketing. So it's always our partners telling the story for Twitter. Like it's not Twitter doing billboards or TV ads or, radio ads, right? So, and so with that, comes inherently problems because it's very hard to control your messaging about what the platform's about. And so I think it takes a more sophisticated user who's been using it like yourself for many years to realize that, you don't actually need to tweet to experience Twitter. You don't need to say anything. You can just sit there in a timeline and consume content. And actually, that's a lot of the time the most valuable because, unless you're seeing tweets from friends around a sporting game, which of course is interesting, like a lot of the time what you're really interested in is, what your club's saying, what the players are saying, what brand, like the NRL might be saying about a breaking story, what journos might be saying. So, and it's really easy to consume that stuff because 140 characters, you can just get up to speed. Years ago, I used to go to 7 or 8 different websites every day. You'd go, but I don't tend, and it's not because I work for, this is before I even started working for Twitter. I just navigated to Twitter as a platform to keep up to date with everything that was happening in my world. And I kind of stopped doing the website, like 7 websites every day because I was like, it's just, those guys are on Twitter, they're tweeting stuff. And if it was a headline I was interested in, I'd go surf through to the site. But
and it will be surfaced to you. It is the power of the crowd and that kind of thing. One of the other things in the latest version of the app, and I've tested out a little bit myself, is the embedded videos in Twitter. So early on, a few of the partners have got access to that. So we've had the Socceroos did a couple of hype videos around the World Cup and put them out and let people engage. And now, pretty much anyone can, so there's a lot of, citizen journalism that can happen. There's a lot of, fandom to show off that kind of stuff. How has that been received so far just from the general audience and, what are some of the initial reactions?
Yeah. I think like the great thing about where we're evolving to is we've moved away from this 140 characters to, first it was photos and then it was multi-photos and now it was video for publishers and now it's video for everyone. And so you can just shoot up to 30 seconds of video on your mobile phone and publish it. One of the great trends that we're starting to see, and we mess around with this in the office a little bit, but only because it was kind of like a meme that started and now we're seeing more of it, is people responding to people's tweets with a video. Yeah. So like you'll tweet something and then I'll jump on and be like, answer it, but I'll actually shoot a video of myself.
Yeah, Gary Vaynerchuk has been doing that. When someone asks him a question, rather than replying back with a tweet, he's turning on the video and he's doing it like at 2:00 in the morning in a darkened bedroom or whatever. It's a little bit creepy, but it's more personable than what the limitation potentially of 140 characters. You can bang out a few more words in 30 seconds of video.
The hard thing has been positioning, because we had Vine for so many years, and we still do, of course, but Vine was traditionally the way that we got video onto the platform. We'd say to partners, hey, join our Vine app, which is for those listeners, it's a short 6-second video app that we acquired the company a couple of years ago. And we always use Vine and publish. And so then now you can do video. We were like, well, how does this position Vine, which is a video platform? But one of the great things I think we're starting to see emerge is Vine's much more high quality content, much more like content creation, like people doing stop animation and there's more of a community of content. I want to call them content creators, artists, for lack of a better term, who create just great, engaging content. Viners, like the YouTubers, right?
There's that whole subculture of people who get that platform and are smashing it. Because when you guys acquired Vine, because it was even pre-launch, it hadn't launched as an app, and when I first saw it, I thought, oh, this makes sense. I thought Vine was just going to be the Twitter video thing, and there was probably a decision, sort of fork in the road, back in San Francisco, to say, do we just integrate it in the product, or do we put it out as a
give
separate
it total autonomy? And I think that we've very much it's now very much autonomous, so it's a separate team. We don't have a huge amount to do with them. I mean, but we're on emails and we talk about stuff we're doing all the time, but roadmap is they do their thing, Twitter does ours, and I think it's great that the business approaches it like that. Otherwise, it gets sucked. I feel as if it gets sucked into the Twitter rabbit hole of it's a massive company now with 288 million monthly active users. I don't know what the Vine stats are at, but clearly, obviously, still doing great numbers, and it's great that they can still work, be very agile and work.
Well, because it's its own platform now, because you have got those people producing content, just engaging on that platform. Yes, the easiest thing is, one of the early things of a lot of the teams are like, there was a bit of another platform. Another platform.
Oh, well, I was saying this the other day. This is what someone needs to go and build this. I now say that, I find it really hard to manage my communication with people because I actually get messages. I get Twitter DM, I get Facebook Messenger, I get SMS. I'm on Line app at the moment. I'm on WhatsApp. I've got a Viber. I've got people who send me stuff on Viber. I've got email and I've got voicemail. Yep. And I'm sure like everyone, there's other ones out there. And I'm a little bit, and I find it really hard to keep. I'm like, someone sends me a DM or someone sent me a text or someone sent me a voicemail. And I'm like, someone needs to just build an app that just aggregates every one of those messaging services into like one spot.
Well, that's a big. That's a big challenge because there's a whole bunch of chat apps and Twitter recently bringing in the group DMs and it was and me and a few of my mates have been on that, and it's like we've been back in on ICQ days. We're just hanging doing jokes with each other in a group DM, and it's been quite funny. So you're moving to the US soon for the Twitter Sports role. Cricket World Cup still in train, happening now. What are some of the other things you're looking to see happen in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I think the big thing for us and the big focus for us as a company is video, because I think that everybody now is at a place like where video is becoming so much more the norm for like content creation and also like consumption. So I think you're going to see much more exciting things from us in the video space. I think like we look at one of the things we've done with the video platform is we wanted to make sure as a business that we were shipping products as quickly as possible. I think there's a bunch of functionality within the current the mobile video that we launched, which is very like version 1.0. Yep. And so, there's a few people I think who've read some commentary, which is very much like, is that it? And it's like, no, it's not it, but like it's better to have it in the market than it is to like sit on it for another 12 months until we get it to like exactly where we want it to be. So video being the big sort of game changer for the platform at the moment. So yeah, I'd watch this space in terms of like how we think about video and how we think about not just creation, but how people can consume video and surface more video as well. Yeah,
and the other thing is sort of the whole way that Twitter has evolved is see how the users use it.
Yeah,
like the users invented the retweet. The favorite. Seems to have gone through an evolution of what it's being used for, and now what it's being used for is a bit of an acknowledgement, or like you can put it out there, see how some of your power users use it, how some of your brands use it, and then how the users want to
totally.
Consume it.
That's exactly what happened with the TV stuff that we've done. Is that like it was never a strategic decision to move into the TV space as this default second screen app for TV shows and sport. But the users were using it for that. And we were like, well, we need to pivot and start thinking about this more because this is the use case that the users want, right? And we're always running 1% experiments. So occasionally you hear reports about, Twitter's changed the tweet button to green. Or
outrage.
Yeah, outrage, yeah.
The internet does not like change.
Yeah, they changed the font or something like that. And there'll be like a screen grab that pops up on one of their sites. But the thing is that those 1% experiments are rolling out like every day, and we just measure engagement and do people like it? Did it get used? Did it change the number of times a tweet got favorited because we made it animate? Now when you hit the favorite button and that sort of stuff, which is great that we continue to sort of iterate every single day on the platform.
Yeah, not all changes. Most changes like terrible, but then you roll out animated GIFs. Yeah, So sometimes you get a big success. So thank you very much for taking the time. Where can people find you on Twitter? What's your Twitter handle?
Yeah, my Twitter handle is my name, so @DannyKeens.
So send Danny a tweet. If you see one of those 1% changes, make sure you complain to Danny. Right. He will take on board all of them. And you prefer via Twitter. Don't need to use any other channels. Just hit you up via Twitter. Thank you very much for coming on, and look forward to catching up with you maybe when you're in the States.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Sean. Cheers.
Sign up for the Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/SGN.
Okay, not often that we do this, but I turn off the microphone and then we realise we start talking about some serious stuff. So we're coming back, and one question I didn't ask Danny was the question that I get asked to ask Twitter all the time, and I'm always throwing it out at events. How many users are there in Australia, and can you let us know what that number is?
Yeah, so there's 33 billion Australian users that log into Twitter every day. No. I mean, look, one of the things that as a business, which is frustrating for me, is that we don't break out user numbers by country. To be honest with you, the reason we don't break out user numbers out in country by country is because when we start to do that, then what happens is in markets where Twitter might traditionally struggle a little bit, which and clearly every social platform would have markets where they're not strong. People could turn to us and say, well, hang on, you break your user numbers out in Australia, so why don't you break them out in Indonesia? Or you're not breaking them out in Indonesia clearly because it's a bad story. Mm-hmm. So once you do it in one market, then you just open yourself up to a world of pain because it becomes easy. Like everyone just makes the assumption, well, clearly you did it there, you didn't do it there, so the story is that you don't.
So that's the reason why. So when an advertiser or a brand or that kind of thing, it comes back to you. So, but Danny, I want some valid reason.
Yeah,
what's your case back to them?
Yeah, I think that one of the things is that for advertisers or brands on the platform, it's cost per engagement. So we don't take money from a brand or an advertiser unless someone engages with a tweet, which is first and foremost. So I think it's less about the audience, the audience number in grand total, because no advertiser wants to reach every single user on the platform. They don't, because you can target specifically. So you can say no advertiser is so broad sweeping that they'd go, I just want to reach every single Australian user, but they may want to say I want to reach cricket fans.
Yep.
And so ads can be served to cricket fans, and then on top of that, then an advertiser is not going to get charged unless someone actually engages with it. And so therefore I think an advertiser
comes down to the results of the ad, and then coming back. I guess the one last thing on because we're on to ads. Is there, there's talk about the click to buy stuff, which is in the future where that, again, makes sense. Yep. You can send out a tweet, click the button. But the other stuff around, getting people to a website and conversion, and there's stuff in the Twitter ad space that's developing that space.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things which Google's done really, really well is tracking the conversion, like the absolute conversion. From someone seeing a Google ad to actually going through and purchasing a T-shirt, or whatever it might be. And I think that's incredibly valuable to anybody to be able to track the return on your investment for an ad spend. One of the things which gets us to the commerce place. So we have the ability now in some markets to buy now, and so the space that we're experimenting in is this in the shopping, in the moment shopping. So the example I use, although we can't do it here just yet, is South Sydney win the NRL Grand Final. They send a tweet which is like buy the Grand Final DVD, T-shirt, cap, whatever it is, swag now. And that idea of like capturing that instant purchase is where we're and you could do that also with like maybe let's say a Rihanna track, like she's just dropped her album, buy the single, buy the album now,
and it fits with that thing that is a commodity. You can sell a lot of T-shirts now. Yes, you've got to go through size and stuff like that. But it's a more complicated model to say, I'll buy a ticket to the next game because you've got to get your details. You might want to then buy an extra ticket. Like it's a more, it's a more convoluted process.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that, the more you do it, like, and this goes down the track of the privacy discussion, but the more you do it, the more information you do hand over to any company, digital company, or, they're actually better they can serve you. So it's not like that they want to invade your privacy, but if we know that when you buy a T-shirt, you buy a large T-shirt, like next time, and we know where we ship it to and we know what your credit card details are, it actually just makes it easier for you and it makes it easy for us, right? So there's also those bits and pieces to consider. I mean, I think the friction is originally just trying to extract, I think for any company, getting credit card details or getting like personal information is hard because, I mean, no one wants to hand that stuff over unless it's to someone unless they trust the brand. And so, but we're experimenting in this space and I'm sure you're going to see more from the commerce team over the next couple of months.
Well, terrific. Well, there we go. That ends part 2, and we will stop recording, and we won't share any more real interesting stuff when we stop. So thanks again, Danny.
No problems. Thank you.
Give Beers, Blokes, and Business a listen where Sean catches up with some savvy blokes.
thanks again to Danny Keens from Twitter. And yeah, there was my first two-parter interview where I stopped the microphone and then kicked myself that I missed a few questions, and we started talking about it, and I said, whoa, we've got to hit record. I do find myself recording far too many of my conversations for podcasts these days, but I hope you found that worthwhile. Really interested sort of diving into a little bit of the Twitter ads stuff. I'm really interested to see how Twitter developed that product, and especially from a point of view, from a sports point of view, and that Buy It Now button, especially around merch. You know, you can imagine the T-shirt, the DVD that you can buy just after a win when your fans are at their most euphoric, will be an easy way for sports teams to make some money, potentially then promote it with some Twitter ads. As I was saying at the top of the show, really looking forward to Seat London at March 17. At Lords. Looking forward to a fireside chat that I'm having with Richard Ayres. I will sit down with Richard when I'm in London and catch up with him for a chat on the podcast. He is on a panel with myself and Derek Brewer, the CEO of the MCC. So we'll get to talk a little bit about cricket, a little bit about football, and a little bit about stadiums and how to engage fans at stadiums and how technology is developing both in the UK and in the US. But some great people turning up, the 49ers and the Giants from the NFL world. Good to see my good mate Todd Cafflish from the Detroit Red Wings also being there. And we're going to finish off the evening with Mike Gatting, former English cricket captain. And I know my Australian and English listeners will obviously understand the connection that Mike Gatting has to Australia. And I think I said it when I was chatting with Rich Irvine from New Zealand cricket. I'm going to try to get the selfie box set. I've got the selfie with Shane Warne. I need the selfie with Mike Gatting. I'll leave a link in the show notes for all the Americans who are not getting the cricket reference to the ball of the century. Other things, don't forget, SB Week is coming up, April 13. There will be an SB Week in your part of the world. Russell Scobetti and Josh doing a great job. Go to thebusinessofsports.com to check out if there is a SB Week in your part of the world. There will be one in Melbourne, the Sports Biz Melbourne Meetup Group. Simply go to meetup.com and then look up Sports Business Melbourne and join that group. On April 13, Sarah Brady from Etihad Stadium has been kind enough to host us at Etihad Stadium for our SB Week meetup. And we're going to get a bit of a technology tour of some of the new tech that is being rolled out at Etihad Stadium for this coming AFL season. So it should be good to get a little bit of tech, understand what they're doing in the stadium, and then do what we do at a Sports Business Melbourne event, a lot of networking and catching up with people. For those of you who are in London, I am coming in on the Saturday prior to Seat on the 13th, arrive on the 14th, leave on the 13th, arrive on the 14th. And I'll be there till the 20th. I'll fly out on the 20th. If you do want to book in a time for a consult, for me to catch up with you, talk to you about what you're doing, please send me an email, Sean@sportsgeekhq.com. I'm currently teeing up times to meet with people, do a few interviews with people around town, and I'm also trying to organise a meetup outside of Seat, just looking for a venue. So again, if you're in London and you can't make it to Seat, please let me know. I most likely will lob in a pub in London somewhere to catch up with a few people that I know via the Twitter and via the internets. And if you're a listener, I'd love to meet you and buy you a beer. And then after that, I'm heading to San Francisco for a little bit of planning and meet up with people for planning for Seat in San Francisco in July. So if you can't make it to Seat London, I'm really looking forward to seeing you at Seat in San Francisco. If you're from Australia, please contact me. I've got a special rate for first-time attendees from Australia and New Zealand. So simply send me an email, Sean@sportsgeekhq.com to come along and have a few more Australians at Seat. That's it. That wraps up this week of the Sports Geek podcast. If you're listening to this, I would really appreciate if you send me a tweet. Tell me that you're listening, what you think. What did you think of Danny Keens' interview? What do you think of Twitter? Where is it headed? How is it positioned to better serve the sports market? And how are you using it? How are you using it differently than 3 years ago as it does evolve? please send me a tweet at Sean Callanan or at SportsGeek. I'll do my best. If I don't reply, that probably means I'm on a plane. Other than that, if you could leave a review on iTunes, that would be much appreciated. We've absolutely smashed past 55 reviews. So very humbled by the response from people around the world. Simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes, and that will take you straight to the iTunes page, and 5 minutes later you've left a review. But the best thing you can do is to tell people to listen to the podcast. I can tell you that you are doing that because I'm seeing more downloads, and I'm very appreciative and humbled by that very much, and so much so that I'm running out of superlatives. That's it for this week. My name is Sean Callanan. This week's Sounds of the Game is from that 3-on-3 street ball between me and my mates. As I said, you can see the video, but just listen to the awe of my opponents after I hit the double clutch shot, nothing but net, and I just walk off. That's it. I think I may retire from basketball after getting that shot on video. Thank you very much. My name's Sean Callanan, and you have been listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.
Like the Sports Geek Podcast? Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/sportsgeek. Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. Thank you for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.
Double pump, big shot, stall.